Welcome back to Naval Gazing at Camp David. This week's guest yacht is a Formula One race car compared to last week's Cadillac. This is a deliciously selfish boat that I don't need to ask what would Sylvia say, because it's pretty darned obvious. This one is just for the speed demon in me. The Marsaudon Composites ORC 50. Today, we are going to review its specifications, pricing, and layout against three similar new vessels. Do a full tour asking what would Sylvia say, even though we know exactly what she would say before she stepped foot. Naval gaze at an innovation and/or adjustment that might make life aboard easier. And as a quick hint, it has to do with power and drives and a few other tidbits. Have a look at the used market for 3 to 5 year old comparables, and that one was tough because there's not many boats like this one. And finally, we're going to give it a Dave score and compare it with the results of all the other previously reviewed yachts. From last week's visit to the yards of Lagoon, we hop over to Lorient and the Marsaudon Composites yard. Created in 1999, it was one of the first companies to establish itself in the former submarine base in Lorient. It covers more than 700,000 square meters of production site. From there, we hop over to our wine pairing of choice this week from the same area, Chateau de SANCERRE, SANCERRE Rouge Pinot Noir. The history of the SANCERRE vineyards goes back almost 1,000 years. It was in the 11th and 12th centuries that monks in the surrounding districts began to cultivate vines. A classic SANCERRE style Pinot, it's light in color with spicy, flory, cherry, licorice aromas. The attack is dry and savory with sour cherry, smoky, peppery celery salt. Euro style in that dry and elegant, food-friendly way. It starts off graceful, clean and bold with soft round tannins, flavors of blackberry, blueberry, and dark chocolate. The mid-palate is well balanced and supported by a touch of oak due to barrel aging. The finish is light with notes of plum and violets. Wow, that's quite light. Very nice. Let's go see the boat. Starting off looking at this boat, I don't know who ORC's photographer is, but whoever he is, every other boat manufacturer should get him on board. Look at the excitement. These photos just raise the hair on the back of my neck. The whole boat looks purposeful. There's almost no windage on it with that rounded roof. Incredible speed just sitting still. And those seats, we'll talk about them later, but your butt is hanging out over the side. You're looking down the edge of this beast into the waves. I mean, there is nothing more exciting that I've ever seen than that seating position on ORCs. Now, looking at some of the specifics here, you can see your upwind sail area at 148 square meters is the biggest of the bunch here, larger than Seacat, larger than OC, and larger than Balance. And then we're going to see what the overall weight is and the combination thereof, and you'll see why this thing flies. Looking down on the cabin top, you can see it is long and sleek hulls, the longest of the bunch, comparative, with huge trampolines and a lot of cabin top space that surprisingly at any of the boats I've seen hasn't been covered with solar, but this is a different cat. It doesn't even have a lot of fuel on board. Looking into the cabins, into the saloon, sparsity minimalist isn't really enough to describe the ORC 50. Sylvia would probably take one look from the dock at the interior and go, forget it. This is purity. This is an F1 race car with its plain interior compared to a modern Ferrari. It reminds me a lot of the Lamborghinis and the Ferraris of sort of the early 70s, where it was almost kit carish in nature. But you can see there's lots of beam on this. And there is good space in the saloon. It's just what's done with it or not done with it. Looking into the hulls, into the actual berth space here. Actually, at the aft, there's a surprising beam to these hulls, or at least a perceived beam on them. You have athwartship berths, although they're shoehorned in there. So there is access on about 2/3 of one side, and the rest you're crawling. The heads, you've got two heads for 4 berths. Or of course 2 heads for, 2 heads for 3 berths on the 3 cabin. You know, overall the space isn't bad. It's just sort of the way it's laid out. It is zip covers instead of closets. It's, you know, you see the bolts coming through the hull. It really is sparsity personified. Now, as we look at the actual statistics here, you can see where this all comes together. So the ORC 50 is the longest at 54.43 feet, or 16.6-ish meters. So it's significantly longer than any of the other comparables. The beam on this thing as well, you could see looking down. It has a good width to the machine. If you're looking at air draft, again, it's got the highest air draft of the bunch, the tallest mast, but look at the actual displacement. 9.4 ton light ship compared to 12.5 on the balance. You know, we've got 14.3 on the OC50. And then on our friend over at Seacats, you've got the next closest, which is darn close, and we'll discuss why that's so impressive at 9.7. It's just a hair under the ORC, but the level of finish inside is not as sparse, not as F1 race car-ish. So they've managed to pull that off. The head sail, or the upwind sail area, you can see is significant on the ORC at 148 square meters. I mean, it blows away everybody else by, what do we got, 15 square meters. Less is the closest one on the balance. But look at your tankage. This is where it gets really quite funny. Your tankage is 220 liters of water and 400 liters of fuel. So, you know, you want to compare that, sorry, 400 liters of fresh water and 220 liters of fuel, my mistake. Compared to, on the fuel side, 800, 1,000. That's interesting. I didn't notice this before. The Seacat is at 260 on fuel, so it's way down there as well. On water, actually, the Seacat is even lower than the ORC, which surprises me. So at 400 liters of water, it's sort of half of what the balance in the OC are. So the last thing is the battery bank. The ORC has a fairly hefty battery bank, given that it is not an electric drive. If you're enjoying the content here, please do like it, do subscribe, and then hit that share button and share it with a couple of like-minded sailors. It would help a lot. Thank you very much. Hopping on board here on What Would Sylvia Say, knowing that Sylvia wouldn't even get on board, The first thing you see are these fantastic tillers. They've integrated them into the logo. It's fabulous. The next thing you see are these seats. And I got to hold it here for half a second because I actually sat on the 42 first, and you don't even see it on this one. This seat is tilted back. You've got a splash guard there. Your butt end is literally out over the side of the boat. You are looking straight down the side of this, and you have a little footstool that pops down. So you're at a tilted angle, perfect to just slightly raise your head, see your telltales, look straight down into the eye of the storm, and fun, excitement. I'd buy the thing for this seat alone. This is the thing that just absolutely sends you over the edge on this boat. I mean, again, I can't really give it enough justice. It just creates such an incredible feeling when you're on board. The one thing you didn't see there is at the back there's an L-shaped cabin window that leads into the rear cabin, and it's really quite spectacular, quite large for the size of this boat. Note the dagger boards, they're inboard. So right in the center of the hull, note the curved cabin top too. My assumption is that that is to reduce windage. Moving forward, you don't have recessed hatches. You have the strong and sturdy ones there. There are no dolphin seats on this. I'd love to see that. But of course, you got the carbon longeron. Very nice placement of your life raft for safety. Heading all the way up there, we can see that lovely mast and back down to the fairly small windows there. Now into a little naval gazing. So one thing on this boat, we already saw that it does not have, obviously, a self-tacking jib. So for the lazy sailor and me, of course, I'd love a self-tacking jib. For the real sailors out there, they all go, Dave, you're restricting your head sail area. You're restricting, in that case, then the extra velocity of wind that head sail drives over your mainsail. I can see that. But the idea of running back and forth and zapping these winches and stuff, okay, call me lazy. But there is a solution. And Lumar has something called the Revo. You're talking about a reversing winch, self-tailing winch, that you have two of them, and they are coordinated with 3 buttons. So you can do an 8-second tack with one winch paying out when the load is on the sheet, and it only pays out when the load is on the sheet. So you hit one button of these 3 and the starboard winch reverses out. At the same time, the port winch winds in, and as a result, you end up with a perfect tack in 8 seconds without moving an inch. The ease of a self-tacking jib with no overlap restrictions. Talk about having your cake and eat it too. Why in the world would we do anything else? Well, I'm sure I'll see in the comments why we would, but bottom line for me, that makes a performance boat easy to handle. Downwind trim, all you do is you hit the ease button and it controls both winches. So there you go. Back on board here on those massive front trampolines, you can see your anchor chain is well down and hidden. You know how I like that. And you can also see it's stowed right in the center of the boat near the base of the mast, centering all the key loads, avoiding the up and down seesaw thing. Again, look at this seat. I mean, if our friend on Le Vagabond enjoyed sitting in the Outremer seat looking down the side, can you imagine what he'd do in this with hand on the tiller? You're talking about a 50-foot boat. By the way, Toby from Yachting World had this thing out at 25 knots. You're managing 9.5 tons roaring across the ocean at 25 knots with your hand on the tiller controlling the thing. Could it get any better? So looking into the cockpit, again, we're talking minimalist. We're talking pretty Spartan here. There are spots for tables. There are, of course, always a composite table. Moving into the cabin and the saloon, you can see, I mean, it really is sparse. You don't have a lot of heavy corian. Everything's molded in. You even have watertight doors going down into the pontoons. Now, I did note that on another version of the ORC 50, they had eliminated those. Obviously, the owner of this one is dead serious. But you could do that with a little more elegance too, say with a glass insert, something like that. There's a fair amount of space in here. Of course, the ceiling is quite low and curved, but you could do interesting things with that from a design perspective. Obviously, this is way too Spartan for my taste. There's no countertop. It's all the molded in. But it is brutally functional. This is what the inside of an F1 looks like. I mean, you're talking a wind speed boat. By the way, this is a vinyl ester boat. So you may be surprised when we get to the price at the end. Here is your one of the main cabins. This is a 3-cabin boat. This is the master cabin. Look at the size of that beautiful window in the back. I myself would raise the mattress up a little bit, take advantage of these outward splayed hulls and get a little more width. Heading up, you can see there are no cupboards. It's just shelves and it's zipper doors. I mean, it is pretty funny. Look at the size of the bathroom though. The head in this is fantastic. You got a huge room there. You could easily have twin sinks. I'm not sure why we went with the stainless top-mounted sinks. I mean, you just couldn't go any simpler. Huge shower, really comfortable. And there is your daggerboard case. But you do have room behind the daggerboard case, which in this case they've used as a separate head room, which is great. So let's move upstairs, go through those watertight doors again, and into the saloon, just looking around. You got a good settee there, and you have a beautiful day bed up on top. Heading down into the passenger side, we'll head aft first. You have a similar berth there, that beautiful huge window. They've got some use of wood grain here, which is nice. It could use a lot more. I mean, you can see the bolts right through. I mean, there's no linings, there's no extra weight. There's not an ounce of extra weight on here. Look at the zip down cupboard doors. It kills me when I look at this. Again, separate head. It mirrors the one on the other side. Again, you got your top-mounted stainless steel sinks because there is no corian countertop. The doors are incredibly light. And moving back, then you've got your shower compartment over to our left, again with its zip-down door. And then you've got your last berth up in the bow here. And not a bad feel in here. I mean, they got that really cool round escape hatch there, reminiscent to me of Windaloo. And it looks good. You could do so much from a stylistic perspective on this. And we'll get into that in just a little bit here. So we're going to head back up into the saloon. We've basically had an overview of everything. So I'd like to talk about a little more naval gazing here. So as we look at this boat, you can see the overall layout. My recommendation, now this is almost laughable because I'm talking about turning this into a liveaboard that Sylvia would like or I would like, and just be on the edge of something you could get away with as something that I might be able to convince Sylvia to get on and still have my selfish tiller and seat and speed and all that good stuff. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm sure the ORC guys are cringing at the very thought of me turning their F1 into a modern Ferrari. But do recall that the original Ferraris and Lamborghinis of the 70s were pretty damn sparse too, much like the early Viper. But today you look at them and they've managed to improve performance while adding creature comfort. So maybe this is the progress we're looking for. So if we look at this real close, let's look at the starboard side or owner's hull on this one. I put a little dotted line in there so you could see where the actual hull goes over that extension rooftop from the saloon. Believe it or not, and Seth from HH would probably freak out when I said this, I would turn that athwartship berth and make it a fore-aft. Simply because if you raise it up about 6-8 inches, you might have to raise some of the windows up. You could get enough width to at least crawl on either side to the head of the bed and maybe avoid disturbing your partner as you get in and out and maybe be able to actually make the bed. So that's what I do there. I would take out the shower compartment that's behind the dagger board there, and I put in a makeup stand, a small desk, and then of course do the bathroom similar to what we saw there, but double sinks, a nice big shower. Obviously I'd add corian, I'd do the floor in a nice teak or a corian. We'd add obviously cupboard doors and maybe a little padded soft touch wall coverings, deal with the ceilings. There'd be no bolts showing through. We'd add a lot more very nice foam cord veneers. It can be done, and it can be done in a very, very light fashion. So there's no reason not to, other than you want a really sparse look. And then I'd put a door in the forward section of the shower that would allow you through into a full-sized walk-in closet in the forepeak, which would solve all of the storage problems, giving you a very nice suite. Now, moving up and into the saloon, I would actually put an actual kickback on the countertop just inside the sliding doors from the cockpit, and drop in or a raising TV there that could swing around, similar to the HH50. Get rid of that giant fixed table at the dinette and turn it into a folding, dropping coffee table slash fold out dinner table, very similar to the Outremer 55. Moving over into the guest cabin, I would sacrifice the forward cabin there and turn it into a utility room with a proper sized washer dryer, proper storage, maybe a pantry. Again, give yourself a door into the forepeak so that you had easy access to the forepeak for additional storage or access in heavy weather. But overall, that is basically what I would do on this, adding, you know, a lot of wood grain and things of that nature. On the outside, the other thing that struck me was the size of the port hull. The port windows are very small. I would quadruple the size of these. It doesn't harm it in any way, shape, or form. And it would look extremely good. The other thing I do, given the lack of fuel capacity and whatnot, I would throw in a hybrid drive on the back end there, and we'll talk about that just a little later. So talking again about the interior finishes, now that you got the big windows and whatnot, what I would like to see in the interior finishes is something very akin to the ML60, where you've got a lot of white and clean and indirect lighting, but you've got some beautiful wood grains done in a foam core. You've got soft and comfortable furnishings reminiscent of the Lagoon 50s and 51s with the contrasting piping. Looks spectacular, and you could do it and really turn this into something amazing. So back out, you can see a massive solar panel there. We'll talk a little bit about the need of that a little later. And just a quick note, you can see here the, the back door is roll up. I mean, everything is light. It's a canvas back door. There's no sliding door or anything. Obviously, I would change that. I would probably go with something similar to what Windaloo has, either that or just a more traditional sliding door format, very similar to what Van is doing on their new boats or Outremer. So let's head back for another shot at some naval gazing here. We were talking about a hybrid drive, and that's exactly what I would do here. So the hybrid drive, it allows basically you to have the best of both worlds, especially a parallel drive such as the one I would recommend here. The parallel drive that I'm thinking about comes from Hybrid Marine. They have an engine combined with a motor inline, and also the generator or high output alternator tied into one simple package, so that you have a 20 kilowatt motor for electrical drive that runs free when you want electricity. When you're sailing, you have regen because of that. When you're motoring, you have output from the alternator system powering your lithiums. So that would give you a huge, you put on a good sized lithium battery bank there. You could then not worry so much about your fuel. You wouldn't have a gen set. You've got that big solar panel on the back. And then if we look on the rooftop, we mentioned this earlier, the cabin top has no solar on it. You could put customized Solaban walk-on solar up here, probably max out at about 2,500 kilowatts, maybe 3,000 depending. You could even do it up the top of the pontoons on either side, such as Windaloo does. And believe it or not, Solaban has a colored panel, walk-on panel that looks like a teak deck. So you could even hide it in there. But I think a hybrid drive like that makes so much sense on this boat where you're looking to minimize the amount of fuel you're carrying. So a quick look down the side of this. Look at that chair again. I mean, look at the angle it's at. Imagine the comfort that you would have just sitting there. As your head tilts up, you can see your telltales. You're looking down, breeze is in your hair, hands on the tiller. You can tell. And sexy, holy mackerel, is this a sexy looking boat. Very little windage on the side. Again, the windows you can see here, they're tiny. They could easily be 4 times the size without harming anything, and put one up in the forepeak as well, giving light to the walk-in closet and the utility room on the other side. So moving into pre-owned comparables. Now this was hard. There really aren't a lot of boats you can compare a Marsaudon Composite to. The only one that immediately leaps to mind is a DazCat. There were no DazCats on display, and there are no DazCats on the used market. So I did my best here. So the first one was a Marsaudon Composite ORC 42, which by the way isn't 42 feet, it's 49 feet. So here we are looking at this one. It's 2021. So it's a year old, and they're looking at $864,745. Now, assuming, of course, that you've got some additional equipment included in that. The ORC 50, using our 50% add-on for sail away rule, we're looking at 1.2 million. So you're looking at a smaller cat here. The 42, and we'll look at that a little later, is smaller. But you're a good 250 less. Now, obviously, if I was going for a ORC 50, I'd be tagging on at least 200 grand and probably 1.5 tons of stuff. So let's not get into that. But hard to compare these two. I mean, great deal either way. Looking here at the slider. So the slider, he's starting out and he's 49 here. It's an 018. It's his demo boat. We're looking 4 years old. You're looking at 750 grand versus 1.2 million. The only challenge here is that the slider is a new and unknown commodity. So, obviously you're going to be discounted there. This looks like a heck of a deal. It's a nice boat. I'd be tempted. I'd want to do a lot of research on it. The only other one I could really think of, other than Outremer, which of course the Outremer 51 we've already looked at, let's just say I'd go with the Outremer at this point in time. The excess here, we got a 2021 that's 1 year old. We're looking at $1 million versus $1.2 million. Completely different boats. I mean, completely different boats. You're not doing 25 to 28 knots. You're not flying a hull. You're not doing any of that in an excess. It's a good boat. It's a comfortable boat. But you're not, you know, you do have a neat helm position on this one, although again, everybody would scream about your exposure, but it's balls to the wall on this stuff when we're looking at the ORC 50 anyways. So I'm not sure what to tell you there. So with all that said, let's dive into the Dave score. Now this, again, I want to first of all say the Dave score is almost pointless on this boat. It stands on its own merits for its own application. I could probably raise this Dave score with another couple of $100,000 and a ton and a half of gear. I would say well up to, say, the balance level. But as it stands, it's sitting at a paltry 56 out of 100 because this is, from Sylvia's perspective, actually, in this case, it would probably be mostly from my perspective too, because although I love the heck out of this boat, I could not live on this boat. So we're looking at the interior, of course, elegance, it's 3. There is no elegance any more than there is in the interior cockpit of an F1 race car. Exterior, sexy as hell, 8. Interior comfort, 3. Exterior comfort, 4. I mean, other than those seats, there's not a lot of comfort out there. Quality, I'd have to give it a 7, maybe higher than that. The perception of quality is there, but you know, of course, the signals I'm normally looking for is in elegance and such aren't there, so I get a little fooled. So this could be 7, 8, could be a 9. Performance, 9, needless to say. The only thing that could go beyond this might be a Rado 60. Trimaran. Lazy Sailor, 5, 4, 3, whatever. There's nothing lazy sailor about this other than most of the lines head back to the helms. Condo, 3, if not less. This is not a condo, although one of the fellas who ordered one did order it for a liveaboard. Geek, 9, if not 10. This is where it makes up. There's elements of this that just appeal to the geek. Value for money, again, because of my standard here, I'd have to give it a 5. So there you go. In my heart, it's higher than this, but on the Dave score, it's sitting at 56 at the bottom. ORC guys, keep doing what you're doing. I love what you're doing. Maybe make a Cadillac version, a Rolls-Royce version of your F1, a modern Ferrari versus the old Ferrari, and just tag on another couple of $100,000 and we're off to the races. With that said, just a quick other reminder, please, if you're enjoying the content, hit subscribe, hit a like, and share this out with a couple of like-minded friends. With that said, we're moving then to the last segment here, and we're looking for more culture from that beautiful area in France where our friends at Marsaudon Composites live. It's not just a submarine business base, it's an area of wonderful wines such as the Pinot we've had today, and it's an area of great artists. One of those artists is Henri Moret, 1856 to 1913. He was a French Impressionist painter and an artist in Brittany. He's best known for his involvement in the Pont-Aven artist colony and his richly colored landscapes of coastal Brittany. Moret was born in Cherbourg, but little is known of his life until he began his military service in 1875. Jules Lavenette, his commander in Lorient, who first noticed his artistic talents, introduced him to Ernest Correlar, a drawing teacher and a marine painter. And the painting we have today is Bastille Day at Lorient. It's painted in 1892, and it is oil on canvas. And I do hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And with that, I will bid you adieu and hope to see you next week. Thanks so much for joining us.